Today's article comes from the Financial Times, and we've gone over this many times before. Um, but you know, what a perfect article for just basically underpinning the entire how Brexiteers. Well, it says it itself in the article. Britain's Brexiteers still do not understand Europe. Yeah, anyone could have told you that. That was the entire point. Brexiteers and Brexit supporters do not understand the European Union. They do not understand a single thing about it, how it works, the importance of it, how it affects our trade, why regulations exist in the first place, what regulations are and how they come to be. They just don't understand it. And as a result, they just think that somehow, oh, if we leave it, everything's going to be fine, gold roses. No, that's not going to be the case. So, straight into it. Why are the Europeans being so beastly? Why won't they agree to the post-Brexit trade deal Britain wants? Worse, why doesn't Brussels understand that it's in the EU's own interest to sign up to Boris Johnson's proposals? As the UK Prime Minister never tires of saying, Britain buys lots of German cars, Italian Prosecco and French cheese. Britain's government is under siege. Its handling of the COVID-19 has been pretty much a shambles. With death rates among the highest of rich nations, the economy is in deep recession. Breaches of lockdown rules by Dominic Cummings, a close personal Prime Minister aide, has scorched public trust in the government. Mr Johnson has faced a Tory rebellion. He looks completely lost. And never mind whether the fires at home say, he says he will take back control from Brussels. However, there is a snag. After jilting its long-term partners, Mr Johnson's government still struggles to understand why it cannot hold on to its matrimonial privileges. A letter sent by Britain's Brexit negotiator, David Frost, to his EU opposite number, Michel Barnier, in advance of a new round of talks next week, was intended to sound tough. In truth, it was rather plaintive. It was rather plain, yeah. Why, Mr Frost pleaded, does Mr Barnier keep saying no? There was an element, of course, of domestic politics. With only 7 months of the Brexit transition period still to run, and with the July 1st deadline to request an extension looming, the prospect of breakdown is rising. The economic costs for Britain would be severe at the best of times, but in the wake of the shock of the pandemic, they will be ruinous. The government wants to make sure that Mr Barnier gets the blame. Beyond the political tactics, however, the letter was depressingly an example of how little the Brexiteers have learnt about the EU after more than 4 decades of membership. Mr Johnson has found it publicly convenient to close his eyes to the realities. Most around his cabinet table have never paid any attention either. The present deadlock is easily summarised. The EU wants a broad economic and a trade deal that will preserve close ties. That Britain insists on a basic zero tariff, zero quota trade, plus a strong string of a la carte arrangements in industries, including transport, energy, pharmaceuticals, and financial and other services. The EU wants long-term access to Britain's fishing grounds, and Mr Johnson is only offering an annual deal. There is nothing erratic about the EU's pitch. To the contrary, it matches precisely the joint political statement to which both sides signed up to last autumn. The solemn declaration of intent and the presumption of ambitious, broad and deep and flexible partnership, which would cover the economic as well as trade cooperation. To make this work, it would include provisions to underpin a level playing field for open and fair competition. The impasse has arisen because Mr Johnson has changed his mind. Invoking a novel theory of international relations, he says that winning a British election bestows the right to tear up agreements he has made with foreign partners. The level playing field provisions, implying that shared employment and environmental standards, norms and common rules for state aid, and everything implying a say for the European Court of Justice, must be jettisoned. Never mind that this goes back on Britain's word. Without a hint of irony, Mr. Frost is now telling Mr. Barnier that the EU cannot take Mr. Johnson on trust, that this, as a Prime Minister, also obfuscates about the fate of a separate, legally binding commitment on the operation of the border between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic. Unsurprisingly, the EU27 considers it has a better sense of its own interests than does Britain. From its perspective, Mr. Frost is proposing a deal that would collect together all the bits Britain likes from the EU agreements with or offers to nations as diverse as Canada, Norway, South Korea and Mexico. This unique package would sit alongside a series of arrangements specifically tailored to Britain's interests in the service sector. The underlying assumption is that Britain is somehow owed privileged access. In the eyes of Brussels, Berlin and Paris, it is now a third country, an important ally, but potentially also a threat to the integrity of the single market. Forget cars, Prosecco, and the union's overriding interest, against which all else is trivial. It is to maintain its system of rules and legal oversight. The Brexiteers have never properly grasped that. For its erstwhile partners, the EU, it is much a political as an economic enterprise. The European integration is an investment in shared security, stability and democratic values, as well as a source of prosperity. These are not things they can give away in a trade deal with Britain. The upshot is that the EU can simply not offer the deal that Mr. Johnson wants. Sure, it can dress up its offer on trade access and reduce its demand on fisheries, but it cannot bend its rule out of shape. Mr. Johnson is left with two choices. He can accept an improvised version of Mr. Barnier's deal and, as he did with the withdrawal agreement, try to reframe defeat as victory. Or he can allow Britain to slide over the cliff edge without any agreement. This government's dismal performance over recent months scarcely gives cause for optimism. Once again, all goes back to the very start. If you remember, during the referendum, Johnson's now infamous... Was it Johnson that said it? I can't remember. I think it was Johnson, though, who said Britain can have its cake and eat it. And the Leave campaign ran with that. The Remain campaign was like, no, the EU won't allow that. You can't cherry pick elements of the EU you want to keep and not keep the ones you don't like. And when they won, the EU was very open from day one. It basically said, we will not allow you to cherry pick what you want. You either have access to the single market and follow its rules, or you don't. And it's been as simple as that. And Brexiteers have this bizarre view of this country that again feeds back into this imperial empire nostalgia that they all seem to have. That Britain is somehow a special country that is owed access and that, it makes demands and that others follow. That country has not existed. That empire is non-existent. We cannot engage in gunboat diplomacy. But that's what all these Brexiteers seem to think and seem to want. They're relying on this mystical past Britain that in some cases never existed. And in some cases, when it did exist, the only reason it did exist because it had a massive empire around the world. That it was, extorting and exploiting these other countries to get trade deals. And if you didn't accept the trade deal, well, then a battleship would show up in your harbour and start blowing it to pieces until you accepted the deal. We can't do that, but that's where we are. And yeah, it's this British exceptionalism And this idea that we need to come to terms, the empire is long gone. It's gone forever. That Britain can never exist again. We need to move forward and get past it. But these Brexiteers are stuck in this mindset that somehow this Britain can come back to be and exist again. It can't. And it never will. And Brexit and the fact that they're so dumbfounded as to why Michel Barnier won't kowtow to these demands. No, because the EU has been set up specifically, as was said there, in a union of shared values of economic prosperity and democracy. They are not going to break these values because, bizarrely, you're a country called Britain and somehow that means that we should be treated special. No. No one would ever accept that. If imagine if you were at work and someone called, I don't know, Jeff walked in and demanded, right, I'm not going to do any work today. I'm special because I'm called Jeff. But there we are. And I'm sure it will continue. And once again, Brexiteers are going to have to explain while all this mess happens why Brexit just isn't working. And as I've said it, I've called it before, there will come a time when the Daily Mail, Express, or whatever runs a headline that basically says, this isn't the Brexit we voted for. I'm counting down the days till that happens. And as I've said, if that ever happens, I will buy that newspaper, I will show you it, and we will go through the article, and we will just laugh together with glee. And there, yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. But